Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing on the economic challenge with China. I assume we all agree that clearly through economic dominance, China hopes to achieve military superiority. Mr. Ashu, how much of the U.S. debt is owned by China?
I don't know the number recently. I do know it's a substantial amount, and it is one that we should be taking steps.
Anybody on the panel know? Okay. So I assume we wouldn't know how much of China debt we might hold either. Let's try land ownership. Does anyone know the amount of land ownership in the United States held by China or Chinese companies? Oh, shit. So do we own any land or control companies that we wholly own in China? Okay. Mr. Williams, when running for president, Mr. Biden famously said, "They're not bad folks. Guess what? They're not competition for us." What's the most important ways that China is in competition for us?
Well, I think it's across the board. China wants to remake the international order to its advantage and to our detriment. And if you look at what they're doing from a national security standpoint, that's a threat. And if you look at what they're doing from an economic standpoint, that's a threat as well. And so, I think they're all major threats to U.S. leadership and that we need to address them all comprehensively.
Thank you. Mr. Fetto, your experience with CFIUS. I had a crazy experience with them not too long ago when a foreign country was contracting with a local port to arrange a long-term lease agreement. In this port is the second busiest cruise capital in the world. It's the site of a nuclear submarine base, and it's adjacent to Cape Kennedy missile range. There were some concerns by some citizens that the company who was pursuing the lease was from a country not friendly to the United States, and some principals in the company had ties to individuals who were not looked upon favorably by the United States. So I told them not to worry. CFIUS would check them out and make sure everything was okay. I contacted CFIUS to make sure I wasn't telling a story, and CFIUS said, "What are you talking about? We don't check them out." And I noticed, in your written testimony, it's important for them to, especially, check out companies near sensitive government facilities or ports. And so I asked CFIUS, "Well, who checked them out?" He said, "Well, I don't know. Why don't you go ask DOD or the Navy or the Coast Guard who has a base there?" So we ran the traps, and we never could clearly ascertain that anyone did check them out. What would be your suggestion going forward to appeal their decision not to look at that issue?
Mr. Congressman, thank you for the question. Without thinking through the facts a little bit more, it's hard to say. I mean, a lease, the way FIRMA was drafted, a lease or a concession or a land purchase near a military installation that's designated expressly in a list published in the regulations is within the scope of CFIUS jurisdiction. And therefore, the question might be, and specifically with respect to ports. So then there is a question of who would, within the 9 voting member agencies, would have the lead, the subject matter expertise to look at that more closely and consider.
Okay. I've only got 2 seconds left, and I wanted to ask you, about the
Gentlemen's
recent purchase of
time's
Chinese
expired.
land near military bases. Thank you.